Well, good morning, everybody. It's really nice to see some new faces in here. Kudos to you for getting some of your folks here. One of your, I'm guessing, partners and employees?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. So this morning, we're gonna go through a little bit of a different format. Meghan had a good idea of going through her bio. I'm more or less gonna read what you'd see maybe on a LinkedIn profile or something you'd highlight, I don't know, in an article or something. Meghan's gonna give us the real skinny on how her career and experience brought her to this point in her career. As many of us know, life, careers aren't a straight line. They often take bends and curves. And so I'm gonna give you the LinkedIn bio of Meghan here, and she's gonna break down the real side of where she is in her career.
That's the
Is that
most
fair?
embarrassing part of the whole thing. Yeah, totally fair.
Well,
Oh my God.
nothing to be embarrassed about. You got a very impressive career. So for those of you who don't know Meghan, she's the founder and managing director of People Architects. You founded the firm, correct?
Yep, we started in 2020.
2020, okay. So Meghan has, well, she's a seasoned leader and a strategist in the human capital space with over 2 decades of experience helping organizations through smarter talent, HR, and people strategies. She is the founder and managing director of People Architects, a consulting firm dedicated to serving small and mid-sized businesses by taking the burden of HR off their plates and enabling people to scale their operations. Throughout her career, Meghan has held pivotal roles spanning in finance, strategy, and people leadership. She's worked as a bond trader, a McKinsey consultant, and served as in other executive capacities as Chief People Officer and Chief Growth Officer, as well as Chief of Staff. At Bridgewater Associates, she led HR functions and organizational change. She has also led senior roles at National City, PNC, Dealer Tire, Talent Launch, Insight to Profit, and ERC, bridging a wide and varied perspective to talent challenges. Meg is deeply passionate about recruiting, compensation, and employee engagement. She started People Architects to help growing organizations win the war on talent by designing HR strategies that are smart and scalable. Her academic foundation includes a bachelor's degree in psychology from Amherst College and an MBA from Dartmouth. And on a personal level, Meg is the proud mother of how many?
3.
3, okay.
Single mother, different challenge.
And somehow, amongst all of that, she's in the middle of writing a book.
I am.
Right?
Oh, yes.
So, sorry that I just read off my phone, I just wanted to get that right.
All good.
Now that you've heard the flowery paper version of Meg's
Yes.
background, we're looking forward to hearing more about
Thank you,
her
Matt.
background.
So the book I'm writing is called The Gift of Being Fired. It's drafted and will be coming out in 2026. So thought it would be helpful to use that as an opportunity to kind of walk through what really happens. Like, we all talk about our resumes, we all talk about what's in our LinkedIn profile, but it does not account for the ways you get there over time, right? So what that bio does not say is that when I graduated from college in the mid-90s, mind you, those of you that might remember the mid-90s, internet had just come out. There was something called CompuServe, right? You would dial into your modems. Everyone still had to print out resumes, and you had to write individual cover letters to send out to individual companies. Like, it was a big deal, and you wrote all your things. And I thought I was all that in a bag of chips because I was graduating with honors from Amherst College, which was competitive. I'm like, I will get a job, no problem. I sent out 77 resumes and 77 cover letters, all printed, and received 77 rejections. They were all printed on my door. For whatever reason at Amherst, when you got rejected, you put your rejection letter on your door so everyone could see it. I think it was some way to make people feel like it's normal. I had so many that the people on the 2 sides of me, it looked like they got rejected. I got rejected from McDonald's, didn't know I'd applied. It was an impressive moment, but it got me to a different world, which is why when I came with my head between my legs a little bit back to Cleveland, I ended up getting a job at SeaWorld of Ohio. Pretty exciting for those of you who may remember. We used to have a shampoo here. I got demoted, that was pretty exciting too. And then finally, like when that summer job was ending, I found through a networking event, like I told everyone I was looking for a job, and a friend of a friend found out, because they were on a board, that McDonald and Company was looking for a secretary. And I was like, I'll apply. So I applied to be a trading assistant on a bond floor. It was the mortgage-backed securities floor. This is important for two reasons. One, when you go in for your first interview and they ask, what do you know about bonds? And it's because your father dropped you off and said, I know when prices go up, yields go down, and that's all you say. That did not go out so well. And they're like, well, what do you know about mortgage bonds? It's like, well, my parents have a mortgage. That was all I could describe. I had not prepared, didn't know anything. And they asked me a bunch of questions on how I solved problems. I talked about solving the ice crisis at SeaWorld over the summer. Like, it was a fascinating thing. I find out later, they do end up hiring me, despite all of this, making less money than a year tuition in my college. So that was a great ROI investment from my parents. And on my first day, I know we have at least one person in finance. How many of you guys are in finance? There's a couple. My very first day on the mortgage-backed trading desk, I think I'm all that still, and I go up to my boss and I said, when do I get to meet Fannie Mae? Because she sounds awfully important. If you don't know why that's funny, I recommend before you go to any bank, find out. Yeah, I got pretty much put into a room for the rest of the day to go learn about Ginny, Fannie, Freddie. We did not have Sally at the time. So it was a humbling experience. So that, was the first kind of moment when you come back and you're like, well, what am I gonna go do? So I got a lot to learn and ended up eventually learning all about bonds and mortgage-backed securities and adjustable rate mortgages. Spent hours going through and asking questions, and within a year I got promoted, right? So now all of a sudden I'm no longer making lunch reservations. I've got my own book of business, I'm doing the work that I wanna do, but I'm still basically a glorified assistant, right? With my own book of business, which is great, right? So I know what we did and I tried to figure it out. I eventually decided to go to another shop, it was called, in Virginia. So they were never gonna treat me, I figured it out, they were never gonna treat me like a trader. I had come in as an assistant, I was always gonna be an assistant. No matter how much I made in terms of the money for them or any of the conversations, I was always the one that was still gonna have to do the assistant work, right? Because they didn't need to hire somebody else. And it forced me to kind of decide, well, am I gonna stay there and kind of always be somewhat limited, or do I just pick up my stuff and go? And so I think they were a little surprised when I packed up my bags and moved to Richmond, Virginia. And for basically it was double my salary.
Wow.
So they had come back as soon as I said I was leaving with a offer, and it was still way less, but it was significantly more than what they had offered me. And I was like, if you're gonna treat me that way, like, you just know, right? So part of the story is like being realistic and understanding who you are and what you wanna be. So I went down to Craig Incorporated at the time, got bought by BB&T. It was the time of lots of mergers in the world of finance. I no longer traded mortgage bonds. I got to trade corporate bonds. It was pretty fascinating. And I was the only female, and I was the only person under 30 in a southern bank. I had to explain why I thought the Confederate flag on the main floor was inappropriate. And they told me it was history. I said, that's great, the history needs to move. And we got it down, right? Like, but it took some time to explain, like, that's not how I see that. And I ended up having, the first book I wrote, which is pretty funny, was teaching everybody on the floor what really mattered. And they didn't understand, they'd just been bought by a bigger bank. They didn't understand they were crossing the line on the trading floor on a daily basis. And so I basically said, well, you don't even know where the line is, right? So yelling across the room, you're awfully cranky today, are you pregnant? Probably is not the thing you want to be saying. There was a whole host of calling my ponytail the Monica Lewinsky handle at the time. There was a lot of fun and exciting. We won't go into all those, but I wrote them all down. Which, now that I'm in HR, is like the biggest nightmare that they could have imagined. Didn't know it at the time. And I used to say every single time, I'm like, guys, that's going in the book. So the time when I come back, I'm gonna write all the things you said, because every time you cross the line, at least, if you choose to cross it, that's fine, but if you don't even know there's a line, that's a different problem. And so they got better at it, right? And I built out some software for them and like did other things I could figure out. And then they got another acquisition, and I decided it was time. I loved bond trading, but I had fallen into it clearly. It wasn't something I said, yes, and psychology degree, let's go do bond trading. Turned out it was the best degree you could have gotten for bond trading, right? Markets are not rational, as we all know. And I went to business school. So with business school, still didn't know what I wanted to do. And if you don't know what you want to do when you're going to school, you want to know what the best profession is? Consulting. Because they will show you all the stuff and they pay you, which is awesome. You may live on planes and in hotels, but you get to learn a lot. And so that's, for business school, I went to McKinsey. I've had a wonderful career at McKinsey. So what I would share though, at the end of my McKinsey career, I had now kind of gone to a different stage in life. So I had gotten married, I was wanting to have children, we had decided I was gonna be the breadwinner, right? So my career was what mattered. But when you're on 7 planes a week, it wasn't what kind of mom I wanted to be. I didn't wanna raise my child, whoever, when I had it, remotely. So I had to have the tough call, and I had an option to go off track at McKinsey. So they told me I could go and do professional development, and I could take more of a staff role versus serving clients. That puts you in another class. Or I could go somewhere else. And so I decided that was the time I had to leave. And one of the things I'd share, which is important to the theme of this for those of you here, is one of the things I did at McKinsey, and I did for most of my career until I started my own company, is I looked for a job every year. Every year I went out on the market. I wanted to see what was there, I wanted to see what was available, and for 6 of my 7 years at McKinsey, I got a great job offer, and I chose to stay at McKinsey. I actively chose to stay, right? So it was hard every time, but I knew I was staying for the right reasons, which made being there so much easier when you're sacrificing, because I was an active choice to stay. And I think a lot of times in our career, we just get into this scenario where we're just not sure. And so I think there has to always be an active choice. When finally my active choice was, I get to stay at home and I get to not be off track and have my child, that's when I moved to National City. Which, of course, was the height of the share price. My first day was the highest share price National City ever had. Pretty exciting. And you want to know why National City went down? Because I started the arms trading desk at McDonald & Company, and adjustable rate mortgages shut that sucker down pretty fast. So it was also my fault, just came back full circle. And I got a job at PNC. My brother was also at National City, a lot of my friends were there. And it was interesting, this is the other key point that I learned, was that when you have these big career move options, you have to decide where you are in your life, right? What do you care about? Do you care about your career progression and where you're going in development? Do you care about compensation? Do you care about your lifestyle? Do you care about the reputation you're gonna get? There's a series of things you gotta look at, like what's the team? Where do you wanna be? What's your risk? My brother, he chose to stay in Cleveland. His wife had a great job. They decided that's what they were gonna do. Well, I needed to make a certain amount of money, and because that's what my family needed me to do, and I wasn't willing to kind of slow down my career, so I took the job at PNC and moved to Pittsburgh. Wonderful decision, but at the end of the day, like, it wasn't gonna be the right fit for me there. I loved it, great experience, and then realized, like, okay, all the great reasons why PNC is exactly the place to keep your money are all the reasons they shouldn't hire me, because I'm way too risk taking for a big organization. And so I moved on to Bridgewater, which was the next big one. So any of you guys know Bridgewater?
No.
So it's the world's largest hedge fund. It's founded by a guy named Ray Dalio, who's more famous for writing the book called The Principles. It's a very, very intense culture. Every meeting you have is recorded. In your office, like, I had a little recording button, so all the meetings were recorded. If anybody says anything about anybody, you send them the recording, or you have to pull them into the meeting. You had something called a baseball card. Literally, like, in every meeting, people had their little iPads, and they would give you feedback in the moment, like thumbs up, thumbs down, what did you do on your different principles? So you got inundated with feedback, which was wonderful, and scary smart people, like Jim Comey had 2 offices down from me, he was our general counsel. David McCormick, who's now a senator, is the guy that hired me. Like, it was this melting pot of super smart, very intense people, which for me was wonderful and a great experience, but also at the end of the day, probably wasn't gonna be my forever home. And I missed it. I moved back to, I wanted to move back to Cleveland, so came back to Cleveland, but also because Bridgewater fired me for all intents and purposes. They basically said they didn't think I could be a senior leader there. I was chief of staff for the COO, doing some really fun stuff, and they decided that my people-pleasing tendencies weren't gonna make me a long-term executive. I was really smart, they really wanted to keep me, but I wasn't gonna be able to stay on my own kind of career trajectory, which was a big reason to say, okay, then it's probably time for us to part ways. First time I really got fired. Hurt hard, meant we had to figure out what to do. We had breadwinner, 3 kids at this point, right? I'd had my youngest up in Connecticut, and now you're back to square one, right? Like, very different, right, than when you're graduating college and you got your parents to fall back on. Now you don't, there's a different profile. And ended up deciding to come back to Cleveland, where I went to Dealer Tire. So I got a great job as the partner at Dealer Tire. I was gonna be the head, the chief people officer. So I was pretty excited to get to build out a department, do sorts of things. I'm out visiting clients on the West Coast, so I missed the partner meeting. And in the partner meeting, they decide that because I missed that meeting, I got to be in charge of building out their headquarters. This is important for multiple reasons, because it is now why I am saddled with the facilities committee.
I was wondering. I've been waiting for that. I'm not kidding you.
So Bridgewater, I go to to be the chief people officer. I build out, if any of you have ever gone to like 71st and Carnegie, between Euclid, super cool building. We built out a really fun headquarters, has a walking track, amazing opportunity, and loved building it out. We got in before our time, like, so we were early, which for those of you that know the Woodland Gym, that doesn't ever happen. And we were under budget. So it was a big win, pretty excited. I went out, I got everybody moved in, awesome. I was feeling really good. I came back from a vacation. I had not taken a vacation in a long time. Come in on Monday, 2 of my team members come in to me, they're like, our people department scored the best ever on the engagement survey, like we had a huge uptick, I'm feeling good. And I remember thinking to myself, what am I gonna do now? Like, this big project's over and like, I'm gonna get bored, but I can do this. Like, I think I can do this, I can figure it out. CEO comes in and I'm like, okay, great, I'm gonna get caught up on everything, pulls me into an office. It is him and the president sitting down, and that's never good, right? If somebody shows up, by the way, to a meeting you're not expecting, it's not good news, especially if it's HR. Sit down, basically I'm told, I'm not a fit, they've decided to move on, and today is my last day. Like, I mean, when I tell you, I have never been bowled over as bad as that moment. And so sure enough, had to pick up my stuff, walk out, like I got escorted by the woman that worked for me, like it was super weird. And now I'm in a car and I'm like, well, what am I gonna go do? Like, devastated, we just moved back to Cleveland. I had a huge house, big problem, but that's how I convinced my kids to move here. So I had a pool, they left a beach to a pool, and I panicked. Well, here's the other fun part of that story. The month before, I had joined Friends of Breakthrough. So right before this happened, I had reached out, I had met with everybody, I had taken a tour, I had known about Breakthrough from my McKinsey days. I took a tour of Breakthrough, and they signed up. I got Dealer Tire to get on board with Breakthrough. They switched their schools, I was all excited. And now I'm fired. And I remember calling, and I don't know if Susan remembers this, but I remember calling and basically being like, well, first off, you gotta change my email, because that doesn't work anymore. And 2, like, I don't know if you still want me. Like, I no longer am affiliated with Dealer Tire. And the best thing was everybody within Friends was like, no, we wanted you, it wasn't Dealer Tire. And it ended up being such a wonderful stabling force for me, right? Like, the amount of people I met through this board and Breakthrough, and I got to volunteer to do stuff, and it gave me structure, and it gave me purpose, right? And so part of the reason that's important is, I don't care what it is, but those things, you're more than your career, and I would have told you if I didn't have some of those, I would have been a much more rudderless ship. So did a lot of stuff with Friends Breakthrough, eventually started my first company called Kenlin, which is a small little consulting company, and then ended up going to a couple of small businesses. I got to the point then when I went to Talent Launch that I fired myself. I figured out after a year they didn't really need me, they needed somebody else. We had a big conversation and we agreed to move on, right? Go to Insight to Profit next, or there's a series. And you know what happens at Insight to Profit? COVID, COVID doesn't work out real well for a professional services firm. We let a lot of people go. I told the CEO, you can't let 20% of your staff go and no one on your leadership team, and I got the call the next day. I could choose furlough or layoff. So I chose furlough and started People Architects, and now here we are. But it has been a very long, windy road, and the only thing I can tell you that would be, I think, the most impactful part of that road is there is no such thing as an obstacle, right? That's why it's a gift. I would hold me getting fired from Dealer Tire and from Bridgewater and everywhere else that I've had, and Insight to Profit, wherever we want to say it, best gift ever. Best gift ever. I'm so grateful because I didn't see it, right? I was in the muck. I was doing the day-to-day. Other people could see it. I couldn't see it. I wasn't my whole self. I wasn't my whole person. And being able, when I lost my own center in way, like, it was great. Even if it wasn't the news I wanted to hear, knowing that I could figure out ways to get through it gave me a lot more strength. I'd always wanted to start my own company. I was never brave enough. And had I not been fired so many times, I never would have done it. So it does all figure itself out. And then when you have great support in the community that needs you more than just your job, it's even better. So that's the story that you don't really hear in the fun little bio and the quips. Because of course we never talk about, well, like, hey, here are all the things I failed, and here's what we're gonna go do about it. But I think that's what, in the end, I mean, that's what everyone's trying to figure out, right? Is how do you take those obstacles and turn them into opportunities? We'll pause. I was hoping to understand because the other part I would share, having gone through this, and for those of you in the audience that are interested, look, I know a lot about hiring people and jobs and recruiting and figuring out your career, and there's an opportunity for, depending on what you want. My guess is none of you have your boss in the room. And so, well, some of you do, yes. You do. So if you tell me you want to go find another job, we should have a conversation. But I am curious for those of you that are here, my guess is a lot of you are trying to figure out how to accelerate careers, figure out where you want to go next, figure out how to meander. The average person shifts careers 7 times. That's not jobs, that's actual careers, right? So I think a lot of times we get stuck into this road of like, we're just gonna do the same thing. And so wanted to turn it over to figure out, what is most useful for you guys?
I'll say something.
Thank you, Hailey.
But the reason I'm working for Meg is because I was fired and not in the right job, and didn't realize that until I got fired. And I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And I just like telling this. My boyfriend had said to me, oh, this woman spoke at this event I went to for Edge or whatever, and she's so smart and amazing. She started her own company. Her name's Mayhugh. And I was like, I know Meg. I helped Meg relocate from Connecticut to Cleveland. So I called Meg and she's like, oh yeah, I need a new business development person, so it worked out really well.
Start off in recruiting, just so
yes.
clear.
And recruiting, yes. So it was great, opportunity, right? You just kind of keep putting yourself out there and looking for it, and then you're happy.
Yes.
So this is a general question, I'm very happy, I wanna make sure. So very clear.
If we need Susan to leave, I'm happy to ask.
So you mentioned like the term like in the muck, right? Which
Yeah.
I felt that way in my career in the past. So like, let's say you're in the muck in your career, and maybe you're not sure where to start. What's some advice you'd give to people who are looking to either find a new opportunity, maybe pivot career pathways? What are some things that you think are like tangible they could do, actions they could take?
So I think everybody, whether you're in the muck or not, there's some things you should just do on a regular basis. And one of which is keep your LinkedIn profile updated. And every week, go on it and make sure you're connected to people. So one of the things people don't know on LinkedIn, so first off, right now this could change with AI, but right now, LinkedIn is probably the #1 source recruiters use to find people. And recruiters, even if I pay for the most ridiculous license, I don't get the full database. I only get people that are 2 people away from me. So the bigger and diversified your network is, the more likely recruiters are to find you. So like, my suggestion is find everybody in this room, link in with them. You need a diverse, big network, and you need to make that part of your priorities, no matter what. that is, whether you're in the muck or not, just get into the habit, right? The diversified network also helps you when you're trying to find people that you wanna work with, or you wanna figure out stuff that's going on. I think that's one. I think two, by getting involved in things beyond just your job, right? That teaches you other skill sets, so I would offer up to any of you in the room that are interested in potentially helping out on the facilities committee, which would be like my thing every time. I have some interesting options for you. I will create a role for you. It will be amazing. But showing leadership, showing ways you can operate and do things, learning new things, also really important. I can be taking courses, that can be doing other pieces. And then I also think the general skill of networking is something we have struggled to teach our kids, candidly. My kids are struggling with it, right? Like, everyone's used to texting. There's no pick up the phone. There's certainly not a whole lot, let's go just have coffee. We get very insular, and so the idea of getting used to just, hey, would you like to have a cup of coffee? I'd love to learn from you. Like, people will help each other. That's one thing I know. Like, everyone will help everybody else, but they have to be willing to go in with like, hey, I'd love to get your perspective on something. I'd love to understand more about you. And the more you create that long-term network, the better off you're gonna be, right? There are some really cool tools if you are truly trying to figure out what you wanna do in your career, and it's a lot of reflections and values, and happy to share those to you, anybody interested. But I do think the more you're active on LinkedIn, the better off you're gonna be. I also think, and I will tell you, I am 100% a minority on this one. I personally believe you should always be looking at other opportunities, all the time. There's no reason not to. For whatever reason, people get really freaked out when someone picks up the call from a recruiter. I think they should know what the recruiter thinks. And because I think it helps them understand where they are in the market, lets them have a better conversation. And for whatever reason, I think a lot of times we're so afraid as an employer, well, so-and-so's gonna pick up the phone. Okay, well, I hope they pick up the phone, and I hope they choose me. And if they don't choose me, I'm gonna learn a lot, because I'm gonna lose the next one that didn't do that, right? So I'd be active in it. I would not wait. There's no reason to wait, and I think that's probably the one other message, right? The best thing I did was always know where I stood in the market. It gives you a lot more confidence too, right? Like, you're gonna be okay. It's all gonna be okay.
Were you that active, like early on in your career, or was it more opportunistic where people would reach out to you, or did you have kind of like once a year, I'm gonna put a little effort into seeing what's out there in the market?
So I think the McDonald and Company story, long and short of it is, so I got promoted to trader. They didn't, and they gave me, I was making $19,000 a year, and they bumped me up to like 22. But it meant I no longer got overtime. So I was making less money as a trader than I was making. And I was bringing $300,000 in profit a month for them. Like, I can do that now. Like, that's not working. And so when I came in for my bonus that year, when I was a secretary, they gave me a $3,000 bonus. I was pretty like bowled over by. And then I come in, I've now gotten the money from the books of business, I saw it all, and I go in and they're like, your bonus is $1,500, it's been a rough year. I'm like, it's not been a rough year for me. Like, and I remember at that moment being like, that was the trigger point of,
yeah, I
gotta see what else is out there, because I know I'm now gonna be treated that way. Like, and so that was the first time I realized I had to just go defend myself, for lack of a better word. And then when I was at McKinsey, I did find in the fall, typically, when we were coming up for review times and it was time to go into the next opportunity, like, okay, let me just see where I stand.
Yeah.
And so it just happened, it wasn't like this is the date, it was more of somebody might reach out, in some cases I would be proactive, but either way, it at least let me know kind of where things stood, and it gave me a lot more confidence when I knew I needed to make a change. Because it's really scary if you're jumping off a ledge and you don't know where you're gonna land.
Yeah.
And that's how it feels when you either get fired or you're trying to leave and you don't have something next, and so until you have the confidence that it's gonna work out, it's almost impossible to feel that way. Not that it's
Absolutely.
so, yes, Kayla.
When you got your 77, was it, rejection
Oh, yeah,
letters, when
impressive.
you got fired from those places, especially the ones you weren't really expecting, how did you overcome that hit, like that challenge? And I feel like that could be a real confidence piece, and I think that could take a lot of people down, and it's harder to get back up.
I'm not sure I did it well. So I also think that's part of wisdom, is that you don't know. I will be honest, I kept all my rejections. So I put all the rejection letters up, I kept them for a really long time. I got rejected from McDonald & Company, I got rejected from McKinsey, I got rejected from PNC, and I got rejected from National City, all 4 of which I ended up working for. I did tear up the McDonald's rejection letter, because that was like, I didn't know I applied, how did I get rejected from McDonald's? Like, that just feels terrible. I had gone to some career fair, and I guess I dropped off a resume, and they were just being thorough. Just in case we don't want you. I was like, okay. It was super hard. I think every other person I graduated with, that was my little friend group, either was going to graduate school or the one other person was trying to go into business, got a great job at Deloitte. And I just felt like a loser upon loser. I did find, because I had been working at SeaWorld of Ohio, and I kind of had gotten into my rhythm there and I liked it, I do think me being able to kind of regroup back in something I knew I was good at gave me enough faith that it was gonna be okay. And so I guess that would be the part I would share was, the more you could, I do actually think, as funny as it is, I'm glad we shared our rejections on our walls. Because then everybody kind of knew everybody was going through it, you didn't feel alone. I think it would have been a lot harder if you were just sitting at home getting rejection call after rejection call. And one of the things, not to shift it, but I think is important, relevant right now. A lot of people right now, when you're applying for jobs, the level of rejections is high. Like, it's over the top high. Because everybody's blasting it. And so the way recruiting works now is it's so easy to apply, so people are just constantly applying. Well, the way recruiting has to work to cover certain requirements is you take the first 50 applicants, you review them, you take the ones that are qualified and move on. Everyone after the next 50, you don't touch them. You wait and see if you have enough qualified people in the first 50. So there's a perception that recruiters are trying to get the best person for the job. Fundamentally false. They are trying to find the first qualified. So if you are late on an application or late on something that got posted, the probability of you getting that job extremely low unless you have a connection into the company. So I have seen so many people get frustrated and keep applying to jobs. I'm like, yeah, you see the job posting, you wait all weekend, and then you apply on Monday. Like, you're not even getting looked at. You're getting rejected before they even see your resume. So that's been a huge, I think, also shift in the way the world works in recruiting. Is you gotta be fast, and then the second thing is you've gotta find somebody at the company that you're applying for that can vouch for you, and then that's the other way you get your resume through.
Appreciate that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's very helpful to know how HR works, because I would have assumed they were
It is
looking
the
for
number
best
one
person.
thing that I think when I tell people that, they get very confused. I'm like, of course we wanna find the best possible person. I don't wanna sound like we don't. But no, I'm not waiting an extra 2 weeks because somebody might apply. If you're not in the first round, if there's someone qualified in the first round, you've missed out. Like, I think there's a perception of we wait and check, and no, there's an empty seat. They are losing money every day. That seat is empty, so speed matters. And that matters a lot if you're applying. You gotta be fast.
Thank you.
Yep. So, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how would I go about finding like the open positions within the first 50 people then? Would I have to do alerts or?
You can do alerts. There are alerts you can put on. If you're not within the first 50, so oftentimes when the jobs post, it's not perfect. When they post, you can get an alert, and you want to. There are options. I think there's a, was it jobright.ai? Is that what it's called? Do you remember that one? Mm-hmm. I'll see if I can find the name of it. There's a new AI tool that's pretty good about getting people at least in fast. If you're not if you think it's been open for a day, right? It will tell you on LinkedIn how many people applied if it's in through LinkedIn. If you aren't in that first group, maybe it's 100. But people will shut it down, right? I always would recommend go through your network. This is also really helpful. Find somebody that you know at the company or is connected to somebody in the company. Reach out. Hey, I applied. Would you be willing to vouch for me? That will usurp any order, because somebody will now pull you to ensure that you get interviewed. And remember, a resume is only enough to get you the interview. It's not about getting you the job. It will never get you a job. It will only get you an interview. And so just remember, like, you want your resume to look like they want to talk to you. Make it interesting, but you're aiming for the interview, one step at a time.
There's also, if you go on LinkedIn, where a lot of people are job hunting nowadays, there's a filter where you can literally filter job postings by what's been posted in the last 24 hours, what's been posted in the last hour, what's been posted in the last 30 minutes. So it allows you to see like what's most relevant.
Okay.
It's one. Is anybody looking for a job right now, or thinking about like, man, I need to start networking and putting myself out? Are you?
Yeah.
I am too.
Okay, it's great. I mean, part of the reason why we've started this professional development, I guess, meetings is to network and to like really bridge the gap, one between former alumni and students and other young professionals in the community, but also just like to network with one another. So definitely reach out and stay connected with people in this room. And like Megan's experience, it could be
It's a big deal.
something that opens doors or leads to your next career opportunity.
Yes, Kevin.
In regards to, you know, getting the resume there and the next step, it sounds like you have maybe 100% success rate of getting the job that you want. You talk about your, well, somewhere. I mean, I would think you've landed a lot of the jobs that you've wanted. What would be your advice on getting there and during the interview? What landed the jobs that you wanted? What was the success there?
I think it's a great question. I've never thought of that, so I need a second. I think the most important thing in an interview is being genuine and authentic. So there are I certainly have had jobs I've interviewed for. We didn't go through that long list, and I didn't get the job. I also now look back and they were right. And most of the time it's the same thing, right? It's all about fit and was it right or not right. And if you're not your true authentic self, the worst thing is you get a job and in the first week you're like, this sucks. Because now you're back out, right? Like that's just terrible. So you don't want that either. And I think there's so many people that get desperate and are just trying to get the job and will say all the right things, then you're not being authentic. And the probability of it being a good fit is not good, right? Like, and you want, even if you want a job for a short period of time, like I'm a big believer, clearly I job hopped according to other people. But I didn't have anything where I was like there for 3 months, right? I at least was a good fit and I could learn something. So I think being your genuine, authentic self. The number one killer in every job interview is you don't have a question for the interviewer. Be prepared, do your research. It doesn't have to be much. Look at their LinkedIn profile, find something in common and ask them about it. Or know enough, like if you don't know anything, why did you choose to stay? Why are you there? You've gotta ask real, genuine, good questions. If you don't, they know you're not interested and you're out. Even if you've asked a bunch of them, you gotta have something.
I think also that prep, which I think is essential, can help you decide, wow, I'm actually not a really good fit. So I shouldn't go forward, right? Although interviewing is great preparation, but it's your reputation also. So you can then learn about that company and decide, wow, I wouldn't even be a good fit here. But interviewers, like when those recruiters are talking to you and asking all those questions, they're expecting you to know, but also have good questions for them.
Other career, well, yes, go ahead. Tim.
So I'll follow Colin, I'm not looking for.
Hey, I love putting Susan on the spot.
You mentioned earlier, and I've only known you from the standpoint of being in the HR world, so I was a little surprised when you said you worked in the bond trading market.
Yep,
So.
get my CFA even.
Yeah, exactly. So I've heard a lot of comments and advice about know what your transferable skills are. And, you know, how do you figure out what that transferable skill is? Because I wouldn't have immediately thought you went from bond trading to HR.
It's a very clear path.
How do you figure that out as a person, what your transferable skills are, that you're not locked into like sales and marketing,
that's a
but
great
maybe
question.
you're in some other aspect, but there are truly things that connect you to that.
So I think all of us have superpowers. In fact, it's one of the questions we always ask in interviews, like what are your superpowers, what's your kryptonite? What are the things that you're not good at, and what are you great at? So when on my infamous when do I get to meet Fannie Mae Day, I knew we had a long road to climb. And it did get me to realize, like, I didn't do just study, so I got my Series 7 and 24 and all those things. It also made me realize, like, okay, I've got to figure out some other way to add value here, because clearly I don't even know the language. And what I did know is at the time, Lotus 123, those of you know that's a precursor to Excel, and we were tracking trading profits on a ledger, a paper ledger in pencil. I was like, there's gotta be a better way to do this. And every day, my job was to take this paper ledger that had our positions, because we had to go get money to cover them, and I would walk it down to the accounting department, and I'd be like, hey, here are our positions. I'm like, this is ridiculous, there is email. So I actually automated it all. I put it in Excel, or Lotus 123. I figured out a way to send it to them so they had it, so it was more direct. I got rid of the paper ledger. And I was able to come up with efficiencies in our process, right? I also figured out a way to repo bonds so you could have them stay overnight, and so we got the carry, so there was things I could do because I could research and figure it out, and then I would help anybody. And because I think one of the things I'm pretty good at is I will learn very quickly, enough to be dangerous. I will never be the expert, but I will be an 80% across the board, no matter what. And so I use that as my transferable skill. Bond trading, interestingly enough, the other thing I learned in bond trading was that it is not logical. And when I figured that out was when I would create, I had any of you that know anything, that I had a position that would age. So you get to take bonds on, and then you had so much time, depending on the company you work for, before you had to sell it, or if it was aging out, they would freak out and it was not good. So I had 30 days and I had bonds that would come up on my aging report. It's like, shit, I gotta get rid of this bond. You know the best way to get rid of a bond on a trading floor? You make a competition. Huh. I was like, here's a pen. Whoever sells the bond gets a pen. Sure enough, everyone wanted to win the pen. I was like, are you kidding me? All right, that's one way to do it. So that's not logical. It was the same bond from the day before, and it was a $2 pen. But they all got the pen, we're really excited. Then also figured out, right, my computer skills, not anymore, but at the time were significantly better than everybody else. And so we used to get this report that would come in, and it was every bond that you could buy across the board. It's called Beach Data. We bought this subscription. It would come over a fax machine, believe it or not. Eventually we got an email, it was lovely. And people would be staring at the books and trying to figure it out. And I was like, well, there's gotta be a way to do this, right? There's gotta be a way to automate it. Bought myself an Access book, and I got the Access program, and I created an Access database. Now here's my fun part of my Access database. So that you could put in how much you didn't want to share, our sales folks didn't want to share with their customers their costs, they wanted to add some commission. So I made it so they could do all that stuff. And it was different kinds of bonds. It was a very, very simple database. But my favorite part of the database, if you remember, I had the book, right? Only girl. I made this the girliest database you could imagine. So literally, in trading, there's a hoot and holler. So you go over speakers on all these floors in different states. And I had click on the heart for mortgages, and click on the flowers for corporates. And so and it was pink and purple, and it was big icons, the sailboat with the sunset. So tough. My favorite story was there was a guy in Charlotte, North Carolina, yelling over into Richmond, Virginia on the hoot and holler, click on the heart! He was so upset because he was clicking on the right button. And when I chose to leave to go to business school, they brought a consultant in because no one else knew Access. And so they had to make the database so someone else could keep it going because they all loved it. And I come back a year later, and the guy had simplified it and made it all clean. They didn't like it at all. They went back to the hearts because I made it so it worked. I knew how they thought, right? So I knew how they thought, and so I made it how they thought, not they would use it, not the simple way. I also, the other fun fact is the teller rates. So on the trading floor, there's teller rates that tell you what treasuries are, and they would move. And no one knew how to use it but me. And so the day I left, I changed the teller rate to say, "Go Cleveland Browns." And that stayed on there for 2 years. But to the question, it's you figure out what you know. And the trading days for me, it was really I could understand how people thought. I could predict what they would do and what they were motivated by. Okay, and then that was basically when I went into consulting. I figured out in consulting, the only thing that mattered across all my McKinsey clients, if they cared about how their people were doing, if they thought about their human capital, okay, then they did better, and so that's why I ended up in the org practice that got me into HR. But the second book I will write is everything I learned about HR, I learned while getting my CFA. Every single concept in finance is the same thing you would think about with humans. Diversity reduces risk, options increase value, right? They're very similar concepts. I just don't think there's not that many bond traders in HR apparently. And so that combination doesn't always come through. Yes.
So they say everybody's got a book in them, and you most certainly do. I'm excited to read yours. What is the theme? I mean, I know what the title is, but what are you going to want somebody reading your book to take away as the basic message? What's the basic message you're trying
I think there's two. The number one purpose of the book really is, I think, at least for me, I grew up in a scenario, and everybody's different, where, I thought I was a failure if I got an A-, right? And if you didn't succeed, I was also taught if you ever were let go, it meant you weren't very good, because they always kept the good people, right? So like you get grown to this scenario where you're supposed to never have bad things happen to you, because if you're that good, they would never get rid of you. So the number one purpose of the book is to, I think, let people lean into, this is just part of life. It does not judge you. It is not your failure. It is just part of how you're going to become more interesting and build wisdom and character and resilience. And so hope is, I think, the piece of like, there's a pragmatic way to get from this feeling of holy crap to it's a gift. It does not happen overnight. So that's the first piece. The second part of the book is there's a lot of specific tools to really help people, whether they are finding themselves in a situation where they're out of a job and they don't know how to approach it, or aren't happy where they are. Like, how do I actually go figure out a way out of where I am, would be the other piece of it. So it's a lot of stories of people that have been given the gift and how they've used it for greater good, and a little more meandering. So I do think, to me, there's a bigger, broader piece of we don't talk. It's like no reason why we wouldn't put the rejection letters on our wall. We don't talk about our failures. Like, we put it all in this happy, glowy, all these good things in your bio, but that's not how you got there, right? And so the more we can just share, that is just that part of getting the conversation going, I think we're all just gonna be better off.
Will each chapter begin with a heartworn flower?
I should put pitch data. Oh God, I love that.
Are you also giving tools on how to tell that story well?
Yes. Mhm.
Because that, I think, is really.
No, that's actually one of the first chapters, is acceptance of, like, it's okay. There's ways you have to share it, right?
Right.
You can't come through as bitter and angry, like, even if you are, suck it up, buttercup, and cannot be done. But you gotta own it, and the more you can own it, people can tell, right? It can't feel bitter. If they do, that they're gonna just assume if it doesn't work out for you, you're gonna be bitter for them. They don't want that. That is actually probably the second biggest killer I've seen, is people still have anger. The anger leaks, does not work well.
Yeah. So funny, for as long as we've known each other, and I think maybe Susan might know this, but I always say, like, this is a gift every time that something has sort of gone sideways. So I share that sentiment and use it all the time. I was just gonna share, I'll hold back all my, 7 career shifts that have happened, but what someone said to me, and I'll just say this to those that are looking right now, when I came out of an organization after really successful 15 years, I couldn't answer what I was, because I had so many different roles, and my coach at the time said to me, okay, because I said, what am I? Like, I don't even know how to actually go out there, because I don't even know what I am. She was like, Mary. She's from Pittsburgh, she's a talent. She's like, Mary, what do you care about? So she had me do this exercise, what do you care about? And so there were 3 things that I picked out that I care about. And I'll just share them because they're quick. One is, I want young professionals to love Cleveland the way that I love the Twin Cities. So I'm really proud of being from Minnesota, but I want downtown to be busy on a Thursday night, and I want young people to fill our city. Number 2, I loved disruption. I loved doing things differently, but for the better good of mankind. And oftentimes it had to do with technology. That was disrupting the way that people did something. But that wasn't the technology piece wasn't a deal breaker. I just knew I liked doing things differently. And the third one was, I knew I did my best work over those 15 years in a startup or mid-sized organization because I could get shit done. In a big one, I had a lot of opportunities and went a lot of different places physically and even skill-wise, but where I loved being was like, let's make it happen, not being sort of held back by a hierarchy or, so those were the three things. So it's been, I think, 3 years since I went through that exercise, and that was like groundbreaking for me because every job I went into, I didn't actually feel like I was necessarily interviewing for the job. I was validating that those three things happened and existed inside the company that I was gonna go work for and spend my time with. So as a mom too, I was like, I'm 40 hours a week, like who am I gonna give my love and energy to if it's not the three people that we brought into this world? So that's been core to like figuring it out. And then the other one, which, dovetailing off of you, is your superpower. So I was like, well, what are the three things that I'm good at? And I was always really clear in interviewing that, like, this is what I'm good at. I think even like a declaration of I'm 80% of the way there. Like I feel as a hiring manager, anyone who can be self-aware of where they're really strong and what they know they're good at and what they may not be or where there could be potential to grow can go a long way, because then you're like, the right leader will see that as a gift and be like, okay, well, I know exactly what I'm getting, so I might not be getting. And the other last concept I'll say is I listened to a podcast with Adam Grant, and he talks about all-stars and all-star and a rock star. So an all-star is someone who's kind of good at everything, and the rock star is like the guitar player. That is just what they do. They're good at that one thing, but the all-star can kind of play all instruments. And so when I decided that I picked which one I identified with, which is an all-star, that got really clear for me too. So
That's great.
those were things, I think
No, those are awesome.
they went a long way.
Yeah, for sure. And that will help you figure out even which companies like to filter, right?
Yeah, and it makes asking questions really easy because you can, like tell me about culture and what does it mean here and where have you had a big challenge or what's been the best with your people? Because people always have mattered to me, so it makes the interviewing way easier and not as like feeling as desperate or you're not proving yourself. That could be an age thing too, where you finally feel like you don't have to prove what you're capable of.
It could be too, for sure.
So, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Meg.
What do you want your team at People Architects to accomplish by the end of this year and even just 1 year from now?
I will answer at the end of this year. So we had a really rough start to our year. We lost our biggest client last year, which meant we had the first 6 months where we were not making money, and you cannot sustain as a losing business. And we're now profitable, which is super exciting. So I want to end on a high note. So very, very pragmatically, like we had to regroup, we had to figure out who we were, we had to figure out business development differently. Hailey has been kicking butt. And we have a different thing. So I want us to be on a trajectory by the end of this year for us to feel like we're gonna continue to accelerate and grow. So that's very, and feel like we have the right group of people that are excited about our journey. Our purpose is twofold. So we did break through HR for a period of time, and there was an interim piece, and so nonprofits is a big part of what we do, which has been great, and having a big part of being in this community has been wonderful, right? So that, I think for future, I care a lot about the community and giving back, and so I think about 50% of our business is nonprofits now. The other part that I care about at People Architects, and Hailey told a little bit of her story, so there's who we serve in the community and what we try to do, which is, I believe small businesses and nonprofits are like the core of how our communities are gonna grow. That's why we serve them. They're underserved typically, there's not great options, and so that's why that we've focused on that, because I think it has an outsized impact. The second half that I'm excited about with People Architects is we hire non-traditional people. So I also love that we're giving chances to people that wouldn't always have that chance. So I have a woman that was a stay-at-home mom for 18 years, was trying to get back in the workforce. She has her master's in social work. She's like, well, maybe I'll just go be a receptionist. I'm like, I can teach you HR. You're wise, nothing. You raised 2 boys and they played hockey. Like, you're good. I can make this work. And so we have that case. Our COO is a foster mom. Our You know, we've had a lot of people, like a teacher that wanted to get into HR and come in. So I love that we're giving opportunities and chances for people that would not be traditional. And that is just as important to me for our team, that we're gonna create a long-term sustainable option for them to go live their best lives. So it's on both sides. Long-winded answer, but.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.